Sounds good.
Hi, my name is Lauren Meese. I'm an Olympian from the 2000 Olympics, competed in judo. And today we have Skyler Cummings with us. We're again just reviewing the history of women's judo and the individuals who have an impact before and currently. So, Skyler, give us a little bit of background about who you are. I know who you are through your dad because I knew him when I was decades ago, younger as a teenager. But yeah, go ahead and introduce yourself.
My name's Skyler Cummings. I've done judo since I was 6, 7 years old. Um, I got into judo because my dad had done judo and was at the Olympic Training Center when they had a resident athlete program. So I started judo in just a recreational, um, in school type of after school program and did their 6 or 8 week program or whatever it was. And after that ended, ended up sorting out a club that was nearby. It was kind of like a club that transitioned off of the club that my dad trained at when he was younger. It was a lot of the same people now with their kids or their family members and everything. And I was there for a while, and but once that school kind of dwindled and everything, I moved on and trained at a couple different places throughout my career. And I was on the cadet and junior world team, and I happened to be someone that won both the cadet and junior world trials in the same year, in the same weight division. So I was about, I think I was 16, and I won the cadet and junior world trials. At that point in time, there was only maybe like 3 or 4 other people that had done that before. Now it's a little bit more seen. The divisions aren't necessarily quite as deep, but at the time I was one of the few people that had done that. I started competing as a senior very early. My first senior division was when I was very, very young, and I won my first senior division when I was 14, and I competed at my first senior nationals around that same time as well. So I've been competing on the senior circuit since I was a younger kid. Um, but yeah, so that's kind of how I got my start competitively. I competed at Cadet Worlds and medaled at senior nationals a couple of times as like a younger kid, and then ended up at about right around COVID time. Couldn't train very much, and there wasn't really anything going on. I ended up getting a job, and from there I ended up opening my own club at 19. So I opened in November of 2020, kind of smack dab in the middle of COVID. And present day, I have people that were on the junior world team. I coached at junior worlds. I have quite a few national champions at this point now. A couple people looking for 2028. So it's definitely been a transition to being like a athlete and being very, very young and transitioning to a coach and coaching people that are my age, some of them older, some of them younger. It's it's a definitely a different experience, and that's kind of where we're at right now.
It's like mind blowing to me. You're so young. How old are you
I'm
now?
24 now.
Oh, okay. All right. But just the fact that you started a club at 19 is
Yeah.
mind blowing. I started mine after college. I was probably like around the age that you are now. And I always am blown away by that fact with you when it comes up because there are not too many people in your position, if any at all. Are you the
No.
youngest?
Um, I'm not sure. As far as like owning a club, I might still be the youngest. I'm not quite sure. I know at 19 I was definitely by far the youngest at that point,
Yeah.
but I'm not sure at this like present day. I might still be. And that's the thing too is that from the start I ended up like I rented a facility. I did it straight up business wise for a job right from the start. So it was definitely a big jump, but I think it was a good time to take it because I have a lot of people that never would have tried judo before, but with nothing going on because of COVID, I ended up reaping in quite a few like tough athletes that were just good athletes that would have been wrestling otherwise or would have been playing football or something like that, and they love judo, and they're competing nationally and stuff now. So it was definitely a very important time for me to do that. And now that I'm older, it's and with a lot of more experience as a coach, it's a lot easier to pull in athletes and get them to buy in and everything like that. So it was definitely a good time for me, I think.
That's monumental to me, and that should motivate a lot of younger girls who maybe get in a position where they don't feel like they want to push forward in their judo career, but still want to have an impact on the community itself. And talking with you
Right.
because you're so much younger, I spoke to Jean Kanakogi, and then I spoke to Eve Aronoff, and they're some of the pioneers, for us as females. So, and this isn't like a gotcha when I ask this question, but just because you're younger and you're a coach, I wanted to kind of see what your take on, like, what knowledge do you have on the history of women's judo? Do you think that today's female judoka knows anything about that history? And do you feel that like there's still disparities for the female judokas currently? Because, the things that they were talking about and the things that I experienced, I'm just really curious now that you're in this up and coming generation, what your perspective is on that.
Now, I think compared to most of the people from my generation or around my age or anything like that, I think I have a fairly good amount of knowledge compared to most of them. I'd say not very many. There will be so many things that I'll bring up about women's judo, and nobody knows about it that are around my age or anything like that. And it's kind of mind-boggling to me because, and I think honestly, a lot of my knowledge on women's judo, and I'm not going to say that like I wasn't there, so I don't
Yeah.
have their knowledge of being there or anything, but um, my dad knew a lot, obviously from being there. So he tells me as being a little girl growing up in judo and not having any female coaches or anything like that. He definitely did spread a lot of that knowledge to me, and between that and just growing up, I had quite a few female training partners and older training partners, and I traveled with, um, like as a younger teenager with some the senior team at certain points. So I ended up being able to get a lot of knowledge, and then stuff that I wanted to know, I ended up reading books or reading articles, mainly articles, honestly. But so
Did your dad show you the
about
Real Judo magazine? Do you remember? Do you guys
yes,
know about that?
we have so many crazy old things. It's nuts. It's nuts. I'll have to have him send you some of the things, but we have bins of just old judo, like what more most people would call like judo junk, where it's just boxes of magazines and newspapers and it's crazy. There's so much stuff, and we look through them pretty regularly. A couple times a year, he'll pull something out and we'll look at it.
So who did you look up
But
to when you were growing up? Like as far as the historical individuals are concerned, was there anybody in your mind? He's just like
well,
her.
someone that my dad talked about a lot was Hillary Wolf.
Oh,
Because he went to Chicago and trained with her quite a few times, and we went out to Colorado and visited her when I was a younger kid and stuff like that. And so that was someone that I always heard stories more so about than anything. Obviously, the matches and stuff that you can see are few and far between as
right.
far as being able to see different things and stuff like that. But that was someone he always told me stories about, and that he was like a about the same age and like a male that was bigger than her, and he was like every time I went with her it was not an easy round. So,
No,
so
I was so afraid of her. She was my teammate, and I was afraid
yeah,
to do randori with her because she was so aggressive and just in control. It felt like she was in control all the time, and there's
right,
just no escape. I felt like a baby swaddled in a blanket every time that I
right.
practiced with her. I want to go with Hillary.
Right.
But she helped to make me a better athlete, and she's also a really hilarious human being and a
Yep,
good
yep.
person. That's really cool. Yeah, I'll if I ever get to interview her here, I'll let her know that you said that. But as far as the disparities are concerned, do you feel like things are pretty equal now as far as the genders are concerned within the
I mean,
sport?
I think so.
Good.
Maybe the divisions in this country overall aren't as equal currently, and that there's so many factors that impact that.
How so? Can you elaborate on that?
I I think it's like we go to nationals, and there'll probably in a lot of the female divisions there's I don't know, maybe the biggest or best division that I've seen was an IGF junior division at 57 kilos like 2 years ago like I said at the U.S. Open, and that had 26 athletes. That's the biggest female division I've seen in a tournament in this country in a very long time. Generally at nationals, I would say most female divisions average 10 athletes.
Mhm.
Um,
It's the bodies. It's
but
not necessarily
right,
like what you guys have access to.
right, correct.
Awesome.
Correct. and and I will say that out of those 10 athletes, I would say 8 of them are very, very tough. That's one thing that we have, where it's most of the girls in the division are always going to be tough. Um, but the guys divisions are having 20 to 30 people. So as far as like a number at that level, it's kind of, and but like I said, at that level of an event in a division where guys have 30 people, there's probably only 5 or 6 of them that are actually very, very tough, where they could go and win some international matches. So the bodies overall, I think as far as we don't have, just like most of the world, we don't have quite as many female coaches as we probably should yet. But you see like on the international stage now, there's Melinda Kelmendi for Kosovo coaching their national team. Paula Pareto coaching 40. That was a 48 kilo world Olympic champion that's coaching Argentina now. So there are way more people you see coming up on the scene as far as female coaches internationally, specifically as far as judokas on the international scene entirely for women. I think there's women's judo is just massive now. It's massive on a world stage. It's amazing. It's amazing.
Yeah, and I think that that's the point that I'm trying to drive home with this is like all of these women from the previous generations, the things that they did to get you guys in that position. Jeez
Yep.
Louise, the things that they had to put up with. Do you find because we were kind of touching upon within my generation, the females didn't necessarily, so you're a coach. Do you feel that your voice is heard when you are, you know, at like a coaches meeting, or do you feel as though everybody you're now seen quote unquote as an equal because we discussed, the men still got the attention even like within the 90s and the early 2000s for seminars and for clinics. And there's always like a common theme like men's judo is better than women's judo. And I understand like the
Right.
testosterone strength in that
Right.
element. It might be like the explosiveness is different, but because we might lack it in the strength, we make up in the technicality. So do
Right.
you feel like your voice is heard as a female coach?
I mean, I feel like this current scene of where we are, I think me personally, I think if I go to a tournament and I'm questioning a call, I think I get this a similar respect that most anybody would get, luckily. Um Maybe 10 years ago, I don't think that would have happened at all. Not at all.
So
Like if I was my current age then, I don't think that would have been the case, to be honest. Um I feel like coaching and the way with people like Marty and Kayla kind of carrying the United States team for a couple cycles and everything, and Angie Delgado, and we had a very strong female team for the last quite a few cycles. So they were, other than Travis, they kind of really care. Obviously, there's Colton, but we had more females on the national or international circuit than we had males doing very well. So
that says a lot.
most of our medals came from females. So I think that a lot of that had to do with the transition of now Marty's leading the national camp with others, of course, but now she's a person that's always at the national camp, is running sessions and stuff like that. So, and I don't remember very many national camps when I was younger. I was kind of in a jump in generations and times where I only remember 2 national camps ever when I was that age, where I didn't even go to both of them. I went to one of them, but they had a, I feel like there was a gap where there was quite a few years that there wasn't one, or it was very small, or whatever it was. I never went to it. And but I know for a fact there were no females running those camps. It was, I know Justin Flores ran one of them. He might have run both of them, to be honest, that I remember. But but now I feel like that with Marty and Kayla bringing attention to women's judo and stuff like that for the United States, I think it's gained a lot more respect.
That's beautiful to hear. So with that, I mean, what do you want? Like, if you could say something to all of the younger generations and the current generations about why it's important to know this stuff and know the history of women's judo, what would you want? What point would you want to like drive home to these individuals?
I mean, on it, obviously I wasn't alive, but 1980 was the first year that women's judo had a world championship. So realistically, that wasn't that long ago. It really wasn't that long ago. And if people aren't continuing, obviously everybody, but women specifically aren't taking the steps to continue to get more women referees, more women coaches, more women judo players, not just competitors, but just women in general. I know very many clubs around the country that have no women, zero women, or two, or so few.
Yeah.
Um, so I think myself as a kid, um, there weren't very many clubs that were you could really train at that had a bulk of women students in general, never mind very competitive ones. Everybody's kind of spread out and everything like that. So I think it's really important to push having younger girls, whether they're competitive or not, just around because obviously the more numbers of women in general that we have in judo, the higher number of competitors we're going to have and the higher number of coaches and referees we're going to be able to have in the future. And obviously those
And fans.
non-competitive, right, and fans,
Yeah.
exactly. And those non-competitive people are going to be the ones that carry our sport because they're the ones making it possible for us to host events and have more clubs in the country run by women and stuff like that. So it's really important to push of all ages having just women in the dojo in general.
And two, I think if they understand, what individuals like Rusty and Eve had to go through
Yes,
to ensure that they're able to do this sport and compete in this sport, I think their
right.
mind would be a little blown.
100%.
Um,
100%.
I'm going to start probably. I really haven't drove that home because you always focus so much on like the context of the class itself and not necessarily like saying you have no idea and getting the girls kind of pumped up
Right.
about the fact that we have so many superhero women and obviously driving home, the idea of Kayla being, our queen of female judo here in the United States
Right.
and Marty and everybody else in the past. I mean, even like do you know Salida?
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, she, every time we were at a tournament, I was just waiting. I was like, yes, Lita, she's gonna do. She was a force to be reckoned with during my time frame. A little bit more of a series because I do also want to kind of like have that juxtaposition because a lot of us dealt with sexual abuse and sexual harassment when we were coming up in our generations, myself included. Is that something that's still relevant today? As far as your safety is concerned, is it more relevant on like the international circuits? Is it still something that you try to maintain a safe like community of communication because that camaraderie, right, between all of us is super important. So is it an issue anymore, or do you feel like it's less of an issue, but still something you need to be cautious about?
I mean, it's probably a lot less of an issue than it once was, but it definitely still is an issue. Um, I know with the Safe Sport organization, it's a little bit easier to you don't have to go through filing police reports and doing the full thing, and it's a difficult process doing something like that. So Safe Sport makes it a little bit easier to feel heard and kind of get things done and whatever else. But it definitely still is an issue, it's every sport, of course. Like
Right.
it's every sport and every aspect of every part of life,
Yes.
but safe sport is definitely a big factor. There are things I dislike about safe sport 100%, as far as like the process is absolutely ridiculous. Um
Really?
yes, I had a safe sport case that I had filed, and it took like 3 years from the date that it was filed to get the the resolution. So it was a long period of time. And I don't know what it's like for I filed it as an adult. So because I wasn't in direct danger at that point or anything like that, I don't know what if that gets thrown on a different pile and they go about it a little bit differently, but I can only imagine how that is dealt with when it's a little kid in a club or anywhere
Yeah.
else in that current position. I would hope it doesn't take that long, but I haven't talked with anybody personally that has had a situation that's more present day current that could give any more feedback on that.
Yeah, I again, that safe sport is awesome, but obviously there are times I believe that you should go ahead and just contact law enforcement. But I was worried about my funding and stuff like that. And
Right.
uh, it was just a really creepy situation. And a lot of
Hmm.
times people are like, men will be men, but I was 16 and there was
Right.
pornography being put on the TV after I was told to sit back and relax in a hotel room.
Oh, that's
But I had
great.
my teammate, Amy Tong. Your
Yep.
dad knows her too. And she's like, we're getting out of here, Mies. I was like, okay, let's go.
Yeah, no,
Um,
those situations, I've never been in a direct situation exactly like that. Um, I had an issue with an older male at one of my clubs when I was 14. Um, luckily it didn't get to I had the I was able to have like the self-confidence in myself to like be like, you need to get away from, and like ran away, absolutely ran away. um so was a case of like assault, as you would say, but it didn't go as far as it would have if I didn't have the ability to say stop. And then I did have one other scenario at like a junior worlds. um Obviously it was out of the country and stuff like that, and just this weird guy from a different country that kept following me around and following me around, and saw what room I went into, and he happened to be 3 rooms down the hall, and was like waiting outside my door when for me to leave so that he could talk to me. And it was very, very odd. Another thing where I just tried to put myself around people and um
right.
whatever else, but it was a very odd situation. So definitely stuff like that still happens. But in that situation too, I was 16 and this guy was 20 years old. So
Yeah.
that obviously not that same age gap or anything like that, but kind of really odd where you're stalking.
It was crazy because, so many things happen over the course of time. And one thing stuck out in my mind just because I was by myself. It was something with like a Canadian athlete when I was on the European tour. But that other situation, we were having a conversation and she's like, yeah, that year at Nationals was so crazy when we went to the hotel room. When she started talking about it, all of the memories flooded back in my brain. I remember what the hotel room looked like. I remembered how many men were in the room. I remember like where I sat down, or like, go sit back and relax. And I'm like, whoa, like, wow, that's crazy because you just push, there's so much happening and you're always pushing through. And sometimes you're not really like conscious of these things that are going on. But it was good that you were alert in that situation and
Definitely.
able to give yourself a reminder and like follow your instinct. What support do you believe that female judokas can give each other, not just in those situations, but just to create a stronger domain and presence within the sport and to make it more about supporting one another, less about, the competitiveness of everything in the community?
I think overall, like, there's actually at my club we did a women's workout recently, and it was part of the Fukuda Joshi Judo camp, like the road to it type of thing, where they had some women's open workouts and stuff like that leading up to the camp that's, I believe, this summer. And I think things like that are really, really beneficial. Um, there's some girls in my club that are very, very, very shy, and they've done judo for a long time, and the like facial expressions and just the way that I could tell they were feeling in the environment was completely different than when they're around other male or boy athletes. It was definitely something like the it was just a different experience compared to what they've seen before. And obviously they have tons of women around them, tons of girls, but having that kind of all female environment was definitely a plus for them. And every single parent that had like younger kids that attended it said that their girls really, really enjoyed it, and hopes that something like that would happen again and stuff like that. So I think things like that are really important. All women workouts and that type of thing. It's very, and obviously not even in a competitive environment, just like a team bond. It was a lot of games. The girls were refereeing matches, and it was a cool little experience for them. And I think on a national stage that I think it would be smart for USA Judo to do a national training camp of just the women athletes at some point. But Um,
You
I
had it,
think it's
Skylar. You had it. You run it.
I, I think it would be really smart because and not like there's that line between segregating and what like it's a weird line to cross because if you say you should have separate workouts, then it's oh you're trying to put yourself in a different corner again and whatever else. But I think it would be really beneficial and have women run the sessions and it's I wish that I had a woman coach at least in a like a someone that was there as like an assistant type person or whatever the deal is. I wish I had someone that was a female that was able to give me more advice and stuff like that because it would be the things that I know as being a previous athlete, being able to take that into coaching the girls now. It's I know that no male is going to know certain things, and there's things that I talk about now with some of the girls especially with like, obviously judo's like a weight class sport, so weight cutting and stuff like that. It's completely different for the men than it is the women, and
Yes.
and in the time there were things that wouldn't work for me that would work for all the guys when I was cutting weight and stuff like that, and it was like, well, why can they cut 10 pounds of water and I'm struggling to get off 2 pounds at the end and it's very different and I'm able to take that information because I know that okay, this isn't going to work for you, but it's going to work for our male athlete over there. So it's really it's you see the differentiation between the two and it's good information to take for them.
Yeah, and that's not to discredit, like I had so many male role models growing up,
Definitely.
that I trained with on a regular basis, and they were such positive supports. I felt so comfortable with them. So it's not to negate any of the efforts that the men do, but I don't they still separate the training camps and the IGF tour when you guys do your training camps, aren't they separate?
Yes,
Yeah,
yes. On the
so
IGF tour, most of them are separated. Once in a while, you'll go to one, and like a session or two will be together, but they're
mhm.
usually still separated.
Yeah, so you're still like doing exactly what they do on the international stage anyways. So
Right,
it's not about segregation, it's about understanding and power and strength and using the bodies that are kind of equated to your own. Um, my first female coach was Terry Takamori on a junior team. And I was just, she's fantastic. I remember just feeling so happy about that it was a different perspective. It was a different way that she spoke to me and
right,
understanding and in a different way that I could process information that she was giving me.
right,
It's almost like you have to have a different face on, which is exactly what you were saying, is that the facial expressions and everything else that you saw that day, it, it's just different. It's just different. And it's
right,
not a good or bad thing. It's just different.
right.
As far as judo itself, what kind of empowerment do you feel like it gave you as a human being, aside from like us just focusing on female judokas, just as a human being, as a person? Who would you not be, if you didn't have judo? What did it
Right.
give to you?
So I've definitely been so I did so many sports when I was younger. I played softball, I played soccer, I played football on an all boys team. Um, I I definitely did more and just I wrestled too. But judo is just completely different because even wrestling and judo are obviously very similar and compared and stuff like that. But the environment that you're in is just completely different. Like even present day, I go to a wrestling tournament because I coach wrestling as well at my club.
Nice.
So I go to a wrestling tournament and it's the environment is so to me so negative. It's very negative as comparing it to judo, I should say. It's very negative. It seems like kids are very pressured to just train and 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 not in a way where it's getting better at wrestling, but let's go put 6 year olds through strength training and let's like crazy weird stuff. And it's not even that bad in New England. New England as a whole is tough in wrestling, but compared to the rest of the country, it's not at all. You go to Pennsylvania, it's a completely different story. But wrestling, the environment is completely different. In judo, I feel like because of the foundations of where it came from in class and stuff like that, people are typically at certain points taught the respect. It's specifically it's foundational of the sport. So to me, I walk into a judo tournament and everybody's pretty respectful. There's obviously times where there's scenes that happen and stuff like that. But it's very cool, calm, and collected as compared to wrestling to me. Um, so I think judo really helps with your self control, um, being able to be strong but sensible at the same time. So, and I know for me, it's created a lot of mental toughness because as someone that was 19 that started a business, it would be very easy for people to just walk all over me. And if I, obviously it's judo specific, so, but if I were to open a different business and not have judo involved or something like that, I definitely would not have the business ethics and um, strength to be able to the get through the stress of every single day and everything like that. Because there's things that happen every single day in business that's like, oh, I have to deal with that today, and there's endless things that it's you think that you get through something, and then there's another thing, and then there's another thing, and then so it's comparative to judo and me going through judo and starting it from a kid and oh I got my yellow belt but then now I'm just working for my orange belt, so it's on to the next and on to the next. So it's kind of developed that, and in other sports there's similarities but there's nothing truly like that, and especially for women there's not very many environments where you're competing against women but you're training with men too, and there's not very many sports that are like that where you're like you go play soccer when you're 12 years old, you're playing with girls and you're playing against girls, but you kind of get all pieces of it and get through all the struggles of different things and stuff like that. So you really learn to work with people and gain personality and learn how to talk to people and gain a lot of confidence, stuff like that, which I know I wouldn't have had if it wasn't for judo. And especially like with me, I was at 12 years old. I went to my first trip without my parents. So it was I went to France at 12 years old and was just there. I was stayed with a host family and stuff like that. So things like that. I was the quietest kid ever, and stuff like that kind of makes you come out of your shell, forces you into uncomfortable situations that you have to work through. So my specific situation and generalistically for everybody else, like those are the two things that really prepared me to go into life and do what I do.
Well, it's a living proof because you have a really successful club and you started at 19. So I look back and like every now and then you kind of hear from old people that you just practice with,
Yep.
and I can honestly say I have yet to really find somebody who I've done judo with, and even if they just did it on like a local competition level, uh, who's not successful in life. You know what
Right.
I'm saying? Like they're doing things for themselves, and I've really tried. Like I've gone through and I'm like, how's this person doing? How's this person doing? And some individuals who never really made it on like the top national stage or international stage, they are doing incredibly well in life. And
Definitely.
yeah, it does something to your mind. It helps you think outside the box. It helps you think, critical thinking is really important when it comes to judo. But like you said, I mean, you become empowered by the relationships that you make, the push through that you have to do, and who is that MMA fighter? He was like judo's class, judo's class. Uh, was like a meme going around,
Yep.
but it to me it is. It
Yeah.
has. I've met some of the most interesting people in the sport. Your dad included, most hilarious people, the best memories with these human beings that you have, to hold on to. So yeah, you're spot on. Anything else like historical information that you find crucial for female judokas in the United States to know? Um, or just, a point of view or like a mantra that you keep to yourself that might be inspirational for other girls out there?
I mean, you kind of brought it up earlier, and the fact with Rusty and everything that the actual fight for women's judo was so you'd think in present day with even women's wrestling coming into a big big scene in the country and stuff like that, you anybody from present day would think that it wasn't the way it was. And um just simply like even with the Rusty Kanakogi Fund now, I think that's a brilliant thing that is really bringing light to women's judo and stuff like that. As far as this fund is giving being given to higher level women judo players in the country and stuff like that. But it really brings light to the situation and the struggles it took to get there and stuff like that. So I really think if people don't know the story and how it happened and everything like that, it'd be really worth taking a look into. Obviously, it's over a long period of time and obviously still in the works present day and everything like that. But I think the steps that it took to get to where we are now it's crazy. It's crazy to reflect and see how different it is now to then. And the way I hear people talk about women's judo and stuff like that sometimes, and to me, I'll watch women's judo on the international stage, and there's just so many good women judo players. It's insane. It's completely
Yeah,
insane. And obviously there was a like one of my favorite women judo players from uh earlier on was Ryoko Tani, and you'll still see videos of her competing go around, and she was just amazing. She truly is one of the best judo players ever,
yeah,
male or
super goat.
female. So
She's the goat.
there's yeah,
She was the
yeah,
goat of my time, and she still is. You know, it's just
yeah,
I did an
and
interview with her at Fukuoka Cup because I
yep.
was the youngest competitor there at the
Oh
time.
wow.
So they interviewed both of us together, and I just was like, "It's her." I was so nervous just to be standing next to her. She was so nice, and I think she could tell the fear slash nervousness in my eyes. So she's not only just an amazing judoka, but a really good human being too.
Right.
Well, from the interactions that I had.
Right. And that's what I like about the IJF as of recently is that they're doing a lot of interviews and really getting stories out there and stuff like that. And they've done them fairly equally with men and women. And they've gone and they did one with Ryoko Tani kind of recently, I believe. And they did one with Telma Montero, who's another athlete from that's kind of gone through multiple eras, honestly.
Yeah.
And so I think the IJF is doing a great job of amplifying women's judo and from all aspects of time periods and everything.
Yeah. Well, Skyler, thank you. It's so awesome to talk to you. Your dad must be super, super proud of you. Thank you for your time and thank you for your perspective.
Oh, thank you for having me on.
All right. Have a good day.
You too. Bye bye.